Okay. Hello, everybody. Oh, that doesn't sound like my sound is on. No, it is. All right. Sorry, folks. We're doing it live, as we say. We're doing it live all the time. It's obviously just me, Dr. Erin, right now. I should be joined by Dr. Kristen, hopefully in the next 10 or 15 minutes. She is literally currently giving a talk right now on boundary setting, which is hilarious because then she'll be joining me right after that to talk about empathy exercises. But she's currently doing that in the great state of Texas in Austin at the Nevertheless She Preached event that she was invited to speak at. So super exciting. Also super exciting. We've started The Handmaid's Tale. More on that in a min. It's a glorious day here in Pittsburgh. So let us get to our empathy exercises. All right. It is officially the last day of summer here in these United States. And it is a glorious day, as I said, here in Pittsburgh. I hope you are well wherever you are. But let's get cracking with our empathy exercises. Up first is wonderful news from the Boston Marathon that in the 2023 race, they are going to be welcoming non-binary athletes. Super exciting. Prior to this, there had only been a men's or a women's division for the races. So they have been working on expanding opportunities for non-binary people, not just for the marathon, but for the other races in the Boston Athletic Association. So it's really great. They can, I'm reading here as I go, the online applications will include non-binary as a gender option. And so they're working literally at becoming a more inclusive organization, which I think is fantastic. Yeah. Hi, Jay. How is it the last day of summer? I don't even know what time means anymore, my child. But I do know that this is great news from the Boston Marathon, and we look forward to hearing this news, hopefully from other racing organizations, because this is what authentic inclusivity looks like. It is saying to people, do you love racing? I don't care what your gender identity is. As long as you qualify for the running, come do the running. And we aren't going to make you feel excluded by forcing you to tick a male or a men or a woman box on your application. We recognize that gender is fluid. So hat tip to the Boston Marathon for that. Speaking of hat tips, y'all, I'm getting so good at these transitions, you guys. It's not even funny. I did one the other day when we were recording a podcast, and like Kristen was so proud of me. But speaking of hat tips, we are also going to hat tip to the Patagonia company, which makes a whole bunch of outdoorsy clothes and stuff. But they have announced that instead of going public, they are going purpose, and their company is going to give away, like basically the company is just giving it away. Earth is now our only shareholder. So their family are giving all of the company to a nonprofit organization, and a specially developed trust to help combat climate change. That is worth about $3 billion in a donation, which is phenomenal. I love that Yvonne Chouinard, apologies for the horrible French pronunciation there, who is the founder said, Earth is our only shareholder. I never wanted to be a businessman. Fair dues, Vaughn. Fair dues, buddy. But they decided to create this company, and now they're going to help us benefit with their wonderful donation. Again, just super cool inclusivity, recognizing that planet is in a bit of trouble. Climate change is affecting us all, and this particular company and these particular humans are leveraging their power to help us all, which is super awesome. Blind Dragon Paladin, hello. Thank you so much for dropping in. Great to see you. We're starting to see a lot of friends back on this our little tiny corner of the internet, as we say, as Handmaid's Tale is gearing up. First 2 episodes have dropped. My friend, to answer your question, the Handmaid's Tale reviews, season episodes 1 and 2 are dropping Thursday of this week, as we're always a week behind. But we decided to stay on par with how they're releasing episodes. So you'll get episodes 1 and 2 on Thursday. And while Blind Dragon Paladin brought up The Handmaid's Tale, before I get to our next empathy exercise, I'm going to tell y'all that we have a Patreon, specifically right now geared towards our Handmaid's Tale coverage. So we're calling the first tier of membership the Mayday, become a Mayday member. And we will have fun little bonuses and little extra bits for our Mayday members for $5 a month, US, $7 Canadian. You can join us for all sorts of neat little things. We've come up with some great ideas already. So we're going to do a little bit of extra analysis for each episode of The Handmaid's Tale and call it a Mayday moment. So you'll have, if you join the Patreon anytime, but hopefully before Thursday, you will get 2 Mayday moments, one for episode 1 and one for episode 2, where we talk about something a little bit extra. And then we're also going to have the Mayday mailbag, where you guys can watch the episodes when they drop on Wednesday, or whenever they drop in Canada. It's weird how they drop differently, isn't it? I think we had this conversation with Nadine once. Hopefully Hulu is not being a troll about that and is actually releasing them when they release them to the United States. But if you watch the episode and you post a question on the Patreon, we will be able to answer that question for you in the Mayday moment for that episode. So I'm going to drop the link for the Patreon here. We already have 3 wonderful patrons, including our beloved Jay. We'd love for anybody watching this to join us. The link is there for the Patreon, and that is what you can expect from and when you can expect our Handmaid's Tale coverage. So only 2 more days, my friend, for our thoughts. So many thoughts and feelings about episodes 1 and 2, y'all. Whoo! Speaking of thoughts and feelings that I have, usually being the self-proclaimed Indian country correspondent for Abbey Research, I saw this article in the National Indigenous Times, which I found through our coverage of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples from what is now Australia. And I signed up for their newsletter and got this cool article about Canadian Indigenous fashion coming to New York Fashion Week. And New York Indigenous Fashion Week kicked off September 10th with a flurry of Indigenous designers from Canada, which is really cool. So the show included Canadian Indigenous designers Stephanie Gamble, Tishana Buffalo, Sandra Frower, Denise Bull Buffalo, and Natasha Peter. The show opened with Native American cultural dances. Super exciting to see this representation for Native fashion and Indigenous peoples of Canada fashion taking its place in New York Fashion Week. Indigenous fashion is one of my side loves. I'm fascinated with the growth of it and how they really are finding a way to kind of assert themselves in the fashion world. And it's great to see this kind of representation and inclusivity in bringing them to the table. Speaking of representation, we are flying through these today, y'all. This is super fast. This article actually came out before the other news about Puerto Rico this week. So that's good and bad news about Puerto Rico. Good news is that Bad Bunny's video for El Apagon is an 18-minute, he used his latest video to share an 18-minute documentary about a lot of things that aren't going great in Puerto Rico prior to them being hit by Hurricane Fiona. But his music video is a quote spirited ode to Puerto Rico that talks about socioeconomic issues affecting the archipelago. It takes its title, guys, I'm just reading this live as we're going through this, from the rolling blackouts that have plagued Puerto Ricans, especially after Hurricane Maria struck exactly 5 years ago. And literally, I think still 80% of the island doesn't have power from Hurricane Fiona. So I know Bad Bunny is a favorite son of that island and has spoken about Puerto Rican politics for a long time, especially in his songs. And so this is a choice that he has made to advocate for more understanding and more empathy for what it's like to be Puerto Rican and to live in Puerto Rico, which is a United States territory, lest we forget that this is a part of the United States in which this kind of disproportionate structural and systemic failures are allowed to happen on the regular, even though we are still having a lot of infrastructure problems, racially tinged and racially motivated infrastructure problems around the United States. Just look at the current water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi to learn more about that. So it was certainly not outside the bounds of what happens within the United States, but worth remembering that Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory and that we should all be advocating for our Puerto Rican brothers and sisters and non-binary friends and neighbors for better access to, electricity and maybe bridges that don't get washed away by floods every time there's a hurricane. So, Bad Bunny's not my jam, but I salute his efforts, and I'm sure the song is a bop if you like that stuff. Speaking of things that I like, that was a rough transition, but we'll go with it. This came across my Twitter feed this week, a literal tweet about Tesco, which is a food store chain, like a grocery store chain in the UK. It was the place that I shopped every week. There was a Tesco just down the road from my house in Belfast. But they recently got a lot of praise on Twitter. There we go. I was like, load the tweet from the Guilty Feminist pod for a sign that was listed in a Tesco shop where it said, if you are in need of sanitary product, please go to our customer service desk and ask for a bag Beth has left for you. You will be given a free package with everything you need. We won't ask questions. Don't feel embarrassed. We are here to help. Every little helps, which is Tesco's motto, and #end_poverty. As you guys know, if you spend any amount of time with Dr. Kristen or I, we are massive advocates for ending the stigmatization of menstruation and for ending period poverty. And statistics are just absolutely disgusting in developed countries where humans who have uteruses and who menstruate do not have access to the products that they need. A recent survey by YouGov found that half of Britons think a great deal or a fair amount of period poverty exists in the UK, including 38% of men and 59% of women. It found among those who currently have periods, a total of 362 women and transgender men in the sample. 9% have been unable to afford period products in the last 5 years. 1 in 8 who currently have periods say it is likely they will be unable to afford period products in the next 12 months. So this is something we tend to think about that only happens in what we used to call third world countries, what we would now call developing nations. And, access to adequate healthcare products and reproductive health products is a problem, certainly in developing nations, but it is a problem in developed nations and in some of the most globally economically rich countries in the world. It is a huge problem for marginalized humans in the United States as it is in the United Kingdom. And so anytime we see something like this, it's going to show up on the Good Doctors feed and on our empathy exercises, because we have to talk about menstruation. We have to work towards destigmatizing it so that we can do things like providing period products for people and not having to cover it up by saying you have to ask for Beth. And they're doing it because it's stigmatized, and they're doing it to protect the people that need that kind of assistance. And so it's a wonderful thing. But I would love for us to get to a world where we don't have to hide that we are helping people with period products. So off my soapbox for that moment. And I'm going to go to one of Dr. Kristen's. I'm going to go to one of her empathy exercises because she's not here yet and I've run out of mine. We're going to talk about baseball, which is the love of both Dr. Kristen and our beloved Eleanor, our video editor extraordinaire. And in honor of Roberto Clemente Day, which was just last week, the Tampa Bay Rays started an unprecedented 9 Latin American players in their lineup on Thursday. Speaking of Puerto Rico, I'm telling you, man, Puerto Rico's in the news. Clemente was a Puerto Rican immigrant to the United States who was a 2-time World Series winner and National League MVP, who played 18 seasons with the very own Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a lovely human. Pittsburgh loves him to this day. We just love Roberto Clemente. We love to talk about him. But super exciting that in honor of the legacy of his impact on baseball and the impact of a lot of players from the global South, if they identify as Latin American or not, which is a huge, huge part of how Major League Baseball has continued to be so successful to this day. I know, iPhone 14, chill. So the Rays had 9 starters from 5 countries: Colombia, Cuba, Mexico, Venezuela, and the Dominican Republic. Yandy Diaz, who hit a 3-run home run, said, "I think the Latinos are really putting a stamp on the game of baseball." Yandy, they have for a long time, which is haven't recognized it as much as we are now. So they all wore number 21 to honor Clemente, and here's the picture of the players. So it's, I see Dr. Kristen, she's coming. I stole one of your empathy exercises, but I saved the one you wanted. So it's a delightful thing to see, and I know we're hopefully going to see more discussion of the impact of Latino players in Major League Baseball. It's one of the reasons why we have a Roberto Clemente Day, so that we can talk about these kinds of things and celebrate how they are integral to America's pastime. So hopefully we can, learn to appreciate and recognize the contribution of Latin Americans to Major League Baseball in a way that we can leverage that to then, help out some of these Latin American places like Puerto Rico. And we'll go from there. I think Kristen is trying to log on. I can see her face, y'all. It's coming. Should we talk about Puerto Rico? We're going to talk about Puerto Rico while she's figuring out what's happening. Because, oh Lord, cracking eggs. The ads today. So thanks for sticking with me with these hilarious ads that are coming up. Apparently, you can help empty your bowels every morning with an egg cracking trick. Great. Thanks, AccuWeather. Why I wanted to talk about Puerto Rico is a bit more news about the island, as I talked about with the Bad Bunny story. If you haven't seen, somehow you've been maybe under a rock for the last few days. Hurricane Fiona became the first major hurricane of this season and dumped 30 inches of rain across parts of Puerto Rico. As of yesterday, there was zero power on the island. Not a single person had power. 20% of power has been restored. I did see an interview last night with the governor of Puerto Rico saying that they hope that full power will be restored in a matter of days. As a reminder, it took 6 months for full power. I have to add. Okay. Hi. Thanks, Jay. Oh, I didn't know I had to add you. You can't add yourself?
Not when I come in from a mobile, no.
Oh, we learn by doing.
We learn by doing, yes. Hello from Austin, Texas, everybody.
Thanks for getting me the message, Jay. I appreciate it.
I just I got her on her Discord. I was like, tell Aaron to add me.
You didn't Slack me, no? Okay, I didn't miss it. Apologies, folks. We're making it work here today. Jay, we love you. Siobhan, yes. I know. That is, in fact, how we were talking about Puerto Rico and Taiwan this weekend. We were like, oh, we want to hear more about it. But Lizzie kicked the bucket. And she did. And that was a big deal. But also,
and then there was a 7.5 magnitude earthquake yesterday in Mexico.
In Mexico, I know.
On the Pacific coast. Another thing we're not talking about because, I mean, I respect that it's a state funeral, but geez Louise.
Yeah, well, I did watch the news last night, and it was the national news, and it was like 90% Lizzie. But they did talk about Puerto Rico. And then there was a typhoon in Japan and Alaska. Yeah. Okay. Massive flooding in Alaska. And so they covered that on the news. But we're here, Siobhan, because we try and have as much of a global perspective as possible. And that's one of the reasons why we do these empathy exercises, so that we can bring things to the conversation that maybe haven't made it to the national conversation, especially in the United States, where all the oxygen lately was taken up with the mourning period and the Queen. So officially welcome to the stream, Dr. Kristen. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Are you ready to talk? What would you like to talk about that is left of your empathy exercises? Did you have anything to add about Puerto Rico, or do you want me to hook you up with Alabama?
No, hook me up with Alabama. Let's talk about Alabama.
Let's talk about Alabama. This is the empathy exercise. Dr. Kristen was like, I'm going to be a little late. Save this one for me. I was like, I got you, boo.
So for anyone who doesn't know the story of the 4 little girls in a Alabama church in 1963 that were killed by a KKK blast, I would really recommend Spike Lee's documentary, which I believe is called 4 Little Black Girls. It's in that article. I think that's what it's called. But it is a...
Yeah. Spike Lee's 97 documentary, 4 Little Girls.
4 Little Girls. Thank you. Really well done documentary explaining this particular incident. This woman that's pictured here, Sarah, is the sister of one of the girls who died, and she was highly injured in the blast. And since 1963, she's been essentially asking the state of Alabama to compensate her for her injuries, to help her pay for her surgeries, to do all of those kind of things. Excuse me. And the state of Alabama keeps saying no. And it hasn't been talked about a whole lot publicly, but this came across my desk this week from a friend of mine who follows this case very closely, and who said that the governor of Alabama, what's her name, was directly asked about this recently and sidestepped it once again and refuses to, we see this a lot in Northern Ireland. It's a little bit of what I wanted to talk about, is that victims of things like this that are either state sponsored or are state permitted, which is really what the KKK was in 63. It wasn't state sponsored violence, but it was certainly state permitted violence. The state is incredibly, incredibly hesitant to offer any compensation because they believe that is, and their lawyers have told them that is accepting blame.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why, with all of the creative minds we have on this planet, we can't come up with a way to say, we're just really sorry it happened and you're a citizen and we're not accepting culpability, but here's some cash. And I don't understand why we can't say that.
And that's the point that I just highlighted here at the end. Rudolph's husband, George, has said he's frustrated because victims of September 11th have been compensated, victims of the Boston Marathon have been compensated, who are victims of terrorism, right? Terrorist acts. So that is not, the state admitting culpability. It's the state saying, you have suffered and we can help you.
Yeah.
And she has spent a lifetime dealing with the physical and mental pain from the bombing. She provided testimony that helped lead to the convictions of the men accused of planting the bomb. And she cannot get an answer nor compensation from the state of Alabama.
I think this is the first time, I did some Googling. This appears to be the first time, at least in the last couple of years, that a major news outlet like HuffPo picked up this story. And I just saw that Siobhan said in the chat that she's from Alabama, and we would all be surprised that how many people have no idea about the bombing.
Lord.
I mean, in my experience, it was only ever taught in civil rights history classes.
That's where I learned it.
Yeah. But that makes me sad. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't know about a lot of the stuff in Charleston either. So, yeah, but this is a significant event that more people should know about. I really hope that this can agitate for some movement for Sarah, and that she can potentially get compensated, but also that more people would understand the incredible trauma that comes from not dying in this kind of thing. May sound really crass, forgive me, but we only ever talk about the dead bodies with things like this. And we don't talk about the hundreds of people who are affected either because their bodies were physically injured or their souls were, or both. And so empathy exercise, I wanted to kind of briefly remind us that when we talk about events like this, it's important to remember, to quote President Bartlett once again, we never know the body count. And to keep us, obviously we believe the state should compensate, and we do believe that there should be assistance here, but more than anything, we would like you to remember that we never know the body count.
Yeah. And, this is a point that we brought up in recording episodes for this season and new series of the Culture Cast, our podcast, which launched on Monday. And we're talking for 10 episodes in the first series about gun violence. And we talked a lot about that as well, in terms of the impact, the cultural trauma of gun violence, especially mass gun violence. And we don't talk about the people who survive. And you and I watched a film called 91% that we talk about in an episode where they specifically interview and profile people who survived shooting incidents. And just like the level of, trauma that they have to deal with mentally, but then also the physical impact of it. This one woman was riddled with buckshot and was going to end up in an assisted living home from lead poisoning, because if they tried to take out all the buckshot, she'd die.
Yeah.
But she has 10 years maybe left before she has to be put into an assisted living home. So we talked about that, and we talk about it a lot, and it's worth bringing up again here, just to make sure that we highlight that even people who survive these types of incidents still need our attention and support. All right. our last empathy exercise, going out on a high note, as per usual. Dr. K, why do we need to talk about Taiwan?
We always need to talk about Taiwan.
Always, literally always. You could talk to us about Taiwan every day.
Every day, or Chinese Taipei, as there are times we were supposed to call it. Anyway, this is a really great reminder that there are human people who live in Taiwan, that they are deeply affected by things beyond government control. This alert came across my phone that they were under a tsunami warning for the earthquake. And I started reading already just about the earthquake and how the infrastructure in particular isn't particularly built to handle earthquakes, even though they're on the that tectonic plate.
Fault line thing.
And I think that's from a lot of the way they did or did not have economic power when they were building the island in a lot of ways. But I think I was at dinner with a friend on Sunday night, and I said, we've done a lot of countries for Colonizers World Tour. And there's ones that just grabbed me. Like there's ones that like, I'm glad I know. And like, we have Jeopardy fun facts for, and that's all fine. But then there's other ones that the people really grabbed me. And one of them is Haiti for sure. But one of them is Taiwan.
I know.
And I read this really great book. The review is forthcoming on Abbey Research Reads, called Peach Blossom Spring, that talks about the generations of trauma that comes from not knowing how to talk about your own country. And who is listening and who is reporting to who and who has feelings about what. And it's like a next level of not having a flag like the Northern Irish citizens don't. And so it's the people of Taiwan are absolutely suffering. We want to remind you that, as always, our number one charity, always and forever, whenever disaster strikes, is World Central Kitchen, because they are always there and they are always feeding people. So if you're watching this and you're concerned about Mexico or Alaska or Puerto Rico or Taiwan, or pick a feature, World Central Kitchen will use your funds responsibly, and they will make sure that people are getting fed and have clean water.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end. As we said, we like to have whatever international news crosses our desk. It's usually now, in a lot of ways, because of the benefit of our Colonizers World Tour and what we have learned. We now have alerts set up for a lot of these places. So you can rest assured that you will always be getting that international perspective from us. We were going to wrap up here and put a pause on our empathy exercises for this week. We will not be back next week because we will literally be on a plane. So we will wave to y'all from the skies over North Carolina,
seaboard.
probably somewhere on the eastern seaboard, as we are flying from Charleston back to Philadelphia. But we will certainly be back the next week or I will be, but you'll be on vacation.
I'm finally taking a vacation for the first time in 3 years.
Y'all, she just gave a talk about boundaries right now, and she's going to enact that talk by going on vacation. So next week, you will not see either of us. 2 weeks hence, you will only see moi. And then I believe 3 weeks hence, maybe the two of us. Who knows?
From a car in Buffalo, because that's when we're doing our interview. So just keep an eye. The best way to keep in touch with us is to definitely be on our newsletter, because the good doctors are traveling this fall for sure. So times may shift, times may change. We may end up doing some empathy exercise next Tuesday, but it would be later in the afternoon. So,
who knows?
So keep a weather eye in your notifications, and definitely subscribe to our newsletter.
Yeah, I'm getting the link right now as we talk. Everybody wants you to enjoy your holidays. Yay. Thanks, Siobhan.
Thanks, everybody.
Jay. There's the link for the digest. We'll keep you abreast of our travels and when we will and will not be on the internet. As a reminder, thanks to our friend Blind Dragon Paladin for the question. Handmaid's Tale episodes 1 and 2 videos will drop on Thursday. If you would like to join us in La Patreon, where we will have fantastically fun things like Mayday moments and Mayday mailbags and any other alliterations we can possibly think of. Please do so. The link is in here. I will post it one more time just for shits and giggles, and easy access. We'd love to have you join us on the Patreon. Replay crew, this goes for you too. Hey, replay crew. We're super excited about it. We're having fun already. And we're not hating the season so far. So, I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, but like, I feel slightly optimistic.
I'm not there yet. It could be all the allergy meds I have in me because Central Texas hates me. But I only yelled at my screen like twice. So,
well, we'll take that as our friend Luke said in the episode. We're going to take it as a win.
We're going to take it as a win.
Y'all have a great week.
Yep.
Dr. Donnelly, safe travels. Apologies for missing your 18 private messages about me letting you on.
We learned by doing.
We learned by doing, and we got there. Everybody else, have a great week. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you when we see you.
Talk to you guys later. Bye.